Welcome, and thank you for joining Sylver Consulting's Empathy in Design Thinking virtual event. My name is Eric Moran, and I am a member of the social media team here at Sylver Consulting. We have two exciting guest speakers today. During today's event, you will first hear from brand strategist and consultant Nakita M. Pope. Nakita will be talking to you about ways we can employ empathy in design, as well as helping us understand the 5 human truths. After Nakita, you will hear from strategic product designer Mileha Soneji about 4 principles she uses during human-centered design and how inclusive design helps us solve a broader scope of problems.
Our first speaker is Nakita M. Pope, Chief Chick and owner of Branding Chicks, a boutique branding agency in Atlanta, Georgia, with clients all over the United States. Branding Chicks specializes in brand strategy, development, consulting, and management for femme-owned businesses and femme-focused brands. She helps clients narrow their focus, gives their brand a voice, slingshots their confidence, and clarifies their message so that it resonates directly with their audiences. Her passion for brand strategy also extends to her advertising strategy, branding, and design professorship at the Creative Circus for the past 13 years. In 2019, she also took on an additional role there as the Diversity and Inclusion Advisor, and a year later, the Design Department Chair role. In 2020, she was also named one of Graphic Design USA Magazine's People to Watch. She is a core team member of African American graphic designers. She is also the Vice President of the Board of Directors of Smart Girls on Campus and a board member of Good Thinking Atlanta and Practice Makes Practice. Along with her work and passion projects, she now gets to share her knowledge and experiences with diverse audiences on the international speaking stage for organizations like the Female Founders Network, BBDO Atlanta, Phoenix Design Week, The One Club, Public Relations Society of America, and the Georgia Tech College of Business. As always, her goal is to wield her crayons for good. Today, she will talk about the 5 human truths and how we can implement empathy in design thinking. And now, Nakita M. Pope.
Hi, I'm Nakita Pope from Branding Chicks. Today we're talking about empathy in design. This is a super important topic. If you are creating products or designing services for a particular audience or even designing a brand, it's really important for you to know exactly who you're talking to and to know how they feel, how they think, and be able to create something that they can truly use and will want to engage with. So let's dive in. So when I think about empathy, one of the things that comes to mind for me, especially because I take a very human-centered approach to design, but also to branding, which is my specialty, I think about the human truths of it all. And the reason why that comes to mind is because I think that so often when we're defining our clients and our customers, we're thinking about all the things that make them different or that make them different audiences, very different from each other. But we also need to think about, like, as a whole, what are the things that make us the same? What are the things that we all respond to, that we all care about, that we all think about? Because those are some of the things that allow us to create a product or a service or something that we're going to put out into the world that will touch the masses in a really impactful kind of way. And if you're doing this work and you care about empathy in design, then you want to have that impact. So let's talk about how we can do a little bit more of that. Empathy. We all know the definition, right? But when you think about using it in this process, you want to consider that you want to gather information from your audiences in a very non-judgmental sort of way. Like, even if you have an objective to make them do something or encourage them to take an action or to buy from you or any of those things, in this part of the process, you want to make sure that you're just as open as you possibly can be, because being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, being able to see how they see, to feel how they feel, to hear what they hear, it really gives you a kind of insight that you really can't get anywhere else. And I wanted to bring this one in because even though listening seems to be very rudimentary and a very basic kind of thing to be able to do in the design process, I think it merits being able to say it out loud, even so, because listening is a really important part of the process. And I think as creators, sometimes we are so caught up in what we want it to be that we don't always consider how our user is feeling, how our user is going to use it, what they want and what they need. So being able to listen to them makes a huge difference. Like in active listening makes a big difference too, because like sometimes you want to be able to observe, and be able to listen in on people talking about a certain thing or a certain experience that they've had. I know we've all had that moment where we're not even thinking about the project that we're working on, but something that you overhear or something that's being said sort of breaks it all open for you, right? That happens to all of us. And that's because when we listen, it starts to connect the dots in a much broader way. And it allows us to create things that go a little bit deeper and that engages people on a more human level. So why is empathy so important in design? I have so many thoughts about this, but I'll tell you the basic ones, right? It allows us to really consider the people that we serve. It's an opportunity to step outside of ourselves and to be able to see things from a different perspective. And, I will speak from personal experience, like being able to do this with my clients and with the projects that I've worked on over the years has also made me much more attuned to being able to do it in my life. Whether it's when I meet new people that are not like me or that have had different experiences than I have, like I tend to kind of just listen and observe, at first, because that is what gives me the insight about who this person really is, or makes me think about like what I would do in a certain environment or a certain experience that they're having. And it allows me to like naturally be empathetic, naturally be able to connect with people. And I think whether you're doing work or you're thinking about how this applies to your life, like I think it's all important. So just consider that it goes both ways, right? And when I say that, the vulnerability of it makes a huge difference as well, because when you allow your audience to be vulnerable with you, then they're going to tell you their truth. They're going to tell you what they really want. They're going to tell you what they really need. They're going to tell you what's really frustrating them or what's really not working for them. And the only way you can solve their problem is to know the truth, right? So you want that unfiltered, conversation with your audiences and your clients, because if you don't have that, then you're creating something based on a very surface level kind of engagement. But if you can go a little bit deeper, then that means that you can be much more thoughtful in what you're creating for them. So let's talk about discovery. Discovery is part of my process as a designer and as a strategist. And this is what I do in the very beginning. It's that moment, and it's actually one of my favorite parts. This is that moment where you get to just gather all the information, right? One of the reasons that I love that is because, one, I'm an information junkie, but also it allows me to not have to control anything or create anything yet. Like I'm really excited about the creation process, but I don't get to create anything yet. Now I'm just bringing in all the information that I possibly can. And that looks a lot of different ways. But some of the ways that looks, technically for me is that I may interview my clients, deeply. I have strategic calls with them and I ask all kinds of questions. I may do interviews with the stakeholders that are involved in that brand. There's just so many ways that comes into play. But let's talk about a few of them that you can apply. So number one is observe, right? We talked about that a few minutes ago. Being able to really just observe and listen and not, try to control the situation or even interject sometimes. Sometimes it's better if you just listen, right? Being able to ask why is a really important one. And I say ask why because why usually gives you a much deeper answer. But in general, like I love just asking whatever question comes up in the moment. Like I want to be able to distinguish between the things that are being said, the things that are not being said sometimes with the client, but also encouraging them to ask more questions of what it is that they want and what they need. They may not have even considered it yet, but you asking that question allows them to dig deeper and give you a better answer. Engaging with them, that I think after you've observed, then being able to like jump into the trenches with them, whatever that looks like, right? So, often for my clients, I do site visits. If I'm trying to, brand something that has a physical representation, whether it's a storefront or whether it's a community or any of those kinds of things, I want to be able to be right there and experience it with them, because that allows me to have insights that I couldn't get otherwise. Because if I'm getting it from them, then I want to hear it through their eyes, but I also need to be able to see it through mine. Right. And then absorbing that raw data. We talked about that, like just bringing it all in and not trying to necessarily make any connections yet or be strategic yet or make anything yet. It's just, how much of this can I learn? How can I learn about this? And how can I take this and really use that as part of the next step of my process? The last part of this is, what I said earlier, which is, make sure that you're not bringing any judgment or any opinions into the information that you're gathering. And you will have opinions and you will be probably tasked with making judgments at some point, but just not during discovery, because that allows you to really be in the moment and you get everything that you can from that moment and learn as much as you can before you start to create around it. So I talked a little bit about your audiences. And, I think one of the bigger things about being able to infuse empathy into what you're doing is to consider your audiences in a deeper way. And one of the ways that I do that is I think about their demographics and their psychographics. We're used to hearing the demographics word, right? That's the tangible stuff that we're used to hearing about. But the psychographics are just as important. My philosophy is head and heart centered branding. And so for me, I think about how to make this a real person, a well-rounded person. And in order for me to think about them in that way, I need to think about what their demographics and what their psychographics might be. So when we say demographics, these are the things that you're probably familiar with, right? Their age, their gender, their sexual orientation. It may be where they live or if they're married, what their educational background might be, right? Those things are important because it gives me categories to sort of put them in some ways, because a person that's married has very different concerns than a person that might be single, or someone that lives in the Pacific Northwest might have very different concerns than somebody that lives in Brazil, right? So I do have to consider those things, but the counterbalance to that are the psychographics. The psychographics are where we really get a chance to know our audience in a better way. One of the things that I always point out to people is that if you lined up 5 35-year-olds next to each other, and even if they lived in the same place, they were the same age, they had the same the gender, they identified as the same gender, all of these kinds of things, right? Like that doesn't mean that they're the same person. When you talk to them, they have different thoughts, different feelings, different experiences. They have, different things that they're concerned about. And those are the things that make them a bit different, right? So being able to know what those are allows you to see your audience through a much wider lens. And that also allows you to create something for them that's going to touch them in multiple ways and not just in one way. I talked about these human truths. And when you think about those, I think, these are the things that tie us all together. We just talked about the things that make us different, but think about the things that tie us all together, because especially if you're creating anything that's going to go to a mass audience, sometimes you want to figure out what that is. And this is the common denominator. These human truths are the things that sort of ground us all. And they transcend all the cultural boundaries and all that kind of stuff. And it really is, it's the, really how people think and the societal qualities that they bring forward with them. So let's talk about those. The first one is we need to be understood. I think, everyone can sort of relate to that, whether it is a personal relationship or whether it's even a relationship with a product or a brand. I want to see that they get me. I want to see that they made this for me, right? We want to belong. I think everyone wants that, whether it's belonging to a community or feeling like there is a community built around a particular product or service or experience. Everybody wants to feel like they are part of what's happening. Everybody longs to feel special. I think, what would it be like if the things that you're making to put out in the world made people feel special? Whether it's an app or a new package design or a poster or a brand that you're creating, how can you infuse that into the way that you solve problems? We crave more control over our lives, whether things are going great or they're not. We want to be able to feel like we have a handle on things. And then the last one, we want to feel like we're reaching our potential. And, sometimes the way that you solve problems in the things that you're designing or creating can give people that hope and also remind them that they're on the right path, depending upon what it is, right? Or give them the tools to get there to reach their potential. So there's so many ways that this plays out, but I hope that you can take some of these nuggets and infuse them into your process, your creative process, your discovery process, all of the things that make the things that you're making and creating that much better. If you have any other questions, or if you'd love to tell me how you've implemented some of these things, I would love to hear from you. That's the part that makes me super happy. So don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you, Nakita, for that extremely informative presentation. Now let's hear about some of the services we offer at Sylver Consulting. We will be back right after this.
Innovative,
illuminating,
family,
core,
team player.
So who is Sylver? Sylver Consulting is your partner, first and foremost.
Sylver Consulting helps plan the future for our customers.
We at Sylver Consulting are passionate about what we do.
It is somebody who will kind of get into the thick of it with you and try to figure out how to solve really tough and wicked problems.
The thing that's really unique about Sylver Consulting is how different everyone here is in terms of their backgrounds and experiences.
We have the most unique and diverse backgrounds, but we all come together to continually push each other to grow and expand our horizons.
But we're also unique, I think, in our ability to, as Brianna puts it, to facilitate the conversations that need to be had in order to move an organization forward.
There's a collaborative and cohesive energy behind it all.
We have everything in-house in one tight group.
We stay relevant by evolving.
Consistently being in that space of assessment of, what is the market needing? What are our customers asking for? Where are they?
Leading them or following them, but really helping them to identify the path that they need to be on or want to be on.
We are a trusted consultant who's just an extension of their organization.
So Sylver Consulting exists to really support organizations to courageously embrace change and future-proof their offerings.
A top-tier consultancy that is going to help your company get wherever it wants to go in the future, and we're going to teach you how to continue innovating as you move forward.
Our second speaker is Mileha Soneji, a renowned TED speaker who believes that having empathy and being able to put yourself in another person's shoes is what makes great human-centered design. Originally hailing from the city of Pune in India, Mileha is currently a senior user experience manager in the Netherlands. Her work entails combining the fuzzy front end of the design process with emerging technologies to answer the question of what needs to be designed to provide value to users now and in the future. Even as a child, Mileha had a keen interest in redesigning things around her, and she pursues to have an inclusive approach to all her projects and in her everyday life. You can view her TED Talk with more than 1 million views where she talks about this topic more. A link will be available in the video description below. Now, without further ado, Mileha Soneji.
So I come originally from India, but I live in the Netherlands now, and I'm working as a user experience designer. So I want to take you back to the days when I was studying to be a product designer back in India. We got a project where we were told that we had to design for special needs. And the one person I thought of whose problems I wanted to solve was my uncle, who I saw suffer from Parkinson's. So the first thing I did, and this is something you do as a student, right? You don't have the luxury to do this when you're designing products professionally. But then I had not even defined the problem that I wanted to solve for him. I started from scratch. I started from empathizing with him, stepping into his world, observing him, getting to know his context better. Just being this silent observer next to him and seeing exactly what are the problems he faces. And that's how I started defining that he has problems when he drinks tea or coffee because of tremors. But also when he was walking down the staircase, it wasn't a problem, but walking on flat land was hard. So the reason I'm telling you this is because I ended up designing products for him that I spoke on my TED Talk as well. I hope some of you have seen it. But how it started was empathy. How it started was stepping into his shoes, his world. And by his, I mean the world of Parkinson's patients, because I did not only interview him, I did not only observe him, I observed other patients as well. And that was the journey for me where I decided that I want to be a pioneer, a person that drives human-centered design thinking. But not only that, stretches it to inclusive design as well. And by inclusive design, I mean designing for someone who you do not consider in your original scope of design. And I'm going to explain a bit about that in just a bit, but I don't think they are any different. To perform human-centered design and inclusive design, you still need the same steps of design thinking and empathy, and this is extremely crucial. So let me show you a little bit about what I mean, how to go from human-centered design to inclusive design. So inclusive design is defined by Microsoft as a design methodology that enables and draws on the full range of human diversity. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you solve the problem for someone who has a permanent disability, for example, they cannot walk easily, or they are blind, or they are deaf, then you not only solve the problem for someone with a temporary disability. In this case, if they have broken their leg, or for example, if you're looking at your phone with the sun shining, you're partially blinded as well, and hence find yourself in this temporary definition of special needs. Even someone talking in a loud bar is going to feel deaf. So this is what I mean by the temporary situation. But then you also have situational needs. For example, imagine turning a doorknob while carrying heavy groceries. It's extremely hard, right? Parents, for example, are doing so many things one-handed because they have a baby in the other one. So what I'm saying is that if you solve it for permanent disability, then you also solve the needs for someone with temporarily and situational special needs. Hence, inclusive design ends up being design for all. So this for me is stretching human-centered design to inclusive design, because you still empathize with a person, you still step into their shoes, you still observe them, but stretch the design to include someone who you had not thought of before. You wouldn't imagine this, but electric toothbrushes were designed for those with arthritis. And now they're in every developed household, right? Typewriters were designed for the blind. So many products have originated because of stretching your boundaries of human-centered design and including someone to design for. So now we're looking at packaging and other products that are designed also for left-handed use, but also for large hands, for example. So that's the direction I would like to go with human-centered design. Now, coming back to how to actually carry out human-centered design. This can be a study in itself, but I would like to actually just take you through 4 simple principles that I apply in all my projects. Principle number 1, step into your user's shoes. I don't know how much I've stressed it in this video already, but it's about who you're designing for. So defining who your audience is. It's about understanding their needs, understanding what drives them, their fears, their motivations, what they feel. It's about getting into their context and seeing how they run their lives, how they use your products. Now, you can of course get a lot of insights, right, from a lot of interviewing methods. Focus groups, for example, but also in-depth interviews and silent observations. But I use this trick. So there's this one sentence, and let me just show it to you because I think this helps place the key problem you want to solve. So this is the statement I use a lot to capture my key observations. Situation, motivation, and expected outcome. So for my uncle, the sentence would have been, when I go out with my friends, I want to be able to drink coffee freely without spilling so that I can be myself, so that I can blend in, so that I do not have to stand out. Other products, right? For example, Spotify. I think their playlists of moods and genres would have come with such a statement. When I'm traveling, I want to listen to music that is motivational so that when I get to work, I can get right in and focus. So this is how I like to use these statements. And actually, if you have multiple statements, you can also prioritize the ones that are key problems and start solving them together. You can cluster them and lead to different clusters that you need to solve. So that was the first step, right? It helps you step into the user's shoes, understand their context. But then, principle number 2 is zooming in to the right problem. Now here, I really like the statement that David Ogilvy had said. He said, consumers don't think how they feel, they don't say what they think, and they don't do what they say. So this is where you really need to combine different methodologies, observations, along with interviews, gives you actually the right analysis. Just someone telling you this is called a declaration, right? It's called a declarative method. Does not mean that this person's actually doing it. So I really like to say that observe, but without interpretations. Now, here I say that, what did I just do? I drank water, right? But you might think I'm thirsty. Well, maybe. But maybe I have a cough. Or maybe that's vodka for some courage to speak with you. So you never know. So try to observe and capture those observations, but make sure you ask why to your consumers after. That's the key to getting the right problem. Principle number 3, getting the holistic view. I always admire this one, that no more is it just a moment in a journey. It's a whole experience. It's a holistic journey. You don't stay at a hotel anymore. You actually start with booking it on booking.com, and they start giving you advice already on what you can do there when you arrive. When you check in, there's another process as well. You have movies that you can choose from. You can actually sign up for different things. And even in the rooms, there's so much connectivity. And then you check out, and they still try to continue the journey by giving you feedback, telling you how it went, and what all more you can explore. So I think it's about this holistic journey, and keeping in mind that consumers are no more only a one touch point. You have to have these multiple touch points to grasp their attention even. and delight them. And the last principle. This one is about testing, learning, improving, and repeating. Design thinking is all about testing early, testing fast. It's the moment you have a concept in mind, the moment you can visualize it. Maybe it's in the form of a storyboard. Try and test it with consumers. Early prototyping, please put it in consumers' hands. You'll learn so much more, and you'll make sure you go in the direction that is what consumers like and prefer. So these are the 4 principles that I really apply. I hope this helps. It was extremely quick, but I really wanted to give you all a quick insight into how to actually carry out, using these tips and tricks, some human-centered design thinking principles. But bottom line, the world is complex. Consumers are being faced with so many solutions, so many products, there's so much stimuli. And we always say, high tech, let's go high tech. But what about being simple and effective and actually having impact on consumers? That's how you can get it, with empathy, with stepping into their shoes and really cracking the core problem of your consumers. So go ahead, empathize, make it simple for your consumers, and delight them. Thank you so much. This is Mileha. Bye.
Thank you, Mileha, for that insightful presentation, and thank you for attending our Empathy and Design Thinking virtual event. Thank you again to our speakers for helping us understand the importance of using empathy in the design thinking process. Please leave any questions and comments below. For more information on Sylver Consulting, please visit our website at www.sylverconsulting.com.